Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Coastside Community Sunday Service. I'm Laurel Frischman, and along with Noreen and Bill, we are your worship associates for today. Unitarian Universalism stands among the liberal faith traditions of this nation. As a denomination, not just this congregation, but all of our congregations, the UU advocates for LGBTQ rights, reproductive rights, voting rights, civil rights, climate justice, and affordable housing as we work together to promote justice and repair this world. Along these lines, the July theme for this congregation is War and Peace. And today we welcome back Reverend Ron Ahnen. He is a recently ordained reverend. We used to know him as Ron. Now he's Rev Ron.
I used to know myself as well.
Yeah. We welcome him to the pulpit, and his sermon is entitled Daggers, Drones, and the Defeat of Just War. The terrible destructive power of war compels us to find nonviolent resolutions to conflict. Still, when negotiation and compromise fail, leaders employ just war principles to defend their military action. Reverend Ron Ahnen considers how the changing nature of modern warfare, coupled with our present UU values, constitutes major challenges in the ethical justification of war.
So, good morning, everyone. Our opening hymn is going to be a new one for this congregation. It's called Let Freedom Span Both East and West. It's going to be in number 148 in your silver hymnals. The tune itself was an old Irish melody that was adapted into an African-American spiritual by Harry T. Burleigh, an African-American organist and composer. The words are by the Universalist minister Jacob Trapp. So Dietrich is going to play the melody through once, and then we will join in singing all four verses. If you have the hymnal, it's 148. If you don't, the words are in your order of service. So please rise as you are willing and able, and let us sing our opening hymn, Let Freedom Span Both East and West. Thank you. You may be seated. And Noreen will now lead us in our Chalice Lighting.
Good morning, everyone. We had a significant event, a big event yesterday. So thank you so much for everyone who came to that, to be here today. I know it's really hard to do the back-to-back stuff, but it's greatly appreciated. And so now it's time to light the chalice, which is a ritual that unites us as Unitarian Universalists. Indeed, it grew from World War II era in sympathy with refugees seeking asylum. And due to fire regulations, this particular chalice flows from battery power. And if you will join me, these particular words are by Adam Slate, and the title is "We Hold That Moment in Our Spirit." So we will be reading this all together. When the great mosaic of humanity is treated with respect and dignity, when no person is threatened by hunger or war, when we have extended hospitality to the stranger and tended to the sick, when equality, equity, and justice reign everywhere, then we shall all be free. We light this chalice to hold that moment in our spirit and in our minds until we can make it real.
Thank you, Vera. That was almost like a lullaby. It was beautiful. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the Reverend Ron Ahnen, a Unitarian Universalist minister. He graduated from Star King School for the Ministry with his Master's of Divinity degree in 2025 and was ordained this last May in 2026. As of 4 days ago, as he mentioned, he is now semi-retired from his position as Professor of Politics at St. Mary's College of California. Reverend Ron will begin his first part-time ministry position with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Chico in September. Welcome, Reverend Ron.
Good morning again. Before I begin my sermon today, I'd like to read a poem by Mary Walker entitled Peace. This is what she wrote in her foreword to her anthology, Poems for Peace. Quote, focusing on peace isn't a fluffy mind game. It's a strategy. It's a decision, and one within our power to make. So here are some poems to support you, to move you into that state. Peace by Mary Walker. Take these seeds, plant them deep, press down the flesh of your body and water with your attention. Behind the cage of your ribs, nurture peace. Know peace in your heart. Raise peace in your mind. Make peace inside your body. And as it grows towards the light, with your outstretched hand, offer peace where you travel, and peace when you leave. But first, take these seeds and plant them. So as was mentioned already today, our nation celebrated its semi-quincentennial, 250 years since the declaration of our independence. And those kinds of anniversaries invite not just celebration, but also reflection. A lot has happened in 2.5 centuries. We began with this new form of government, republican, or what we now call democracy, albeit with a highly restricted participation. Over time, we fought a bloody civil war to end the scourge of enslavement. We've included women to fuller political and economic participation. We created government aid programs for the poor, the disabled, and elderly. And we expanded rights in many ways through civil rights, women, pride, and other social movements. Still, we are aware today of just how much work lies in front of us to rectify and repair our present institutional and structural social injustices. But I want to talk about another uniquely American characteristic this morning, the fact that the United States has a significant propensity to be a nation at war. For all but 20 to 25 years of our history, we have been involved in some war or another. That amounts to 90% of the time that we have existed. And today, we spend over $1 trillion on our defense budget every year, and an additional $500 billion on other war-related departments like Veterans Affairs, Homeland Security, even the Department of Energy, which handles nuclear weapons. $1 trillion is a third of all global spending on war, and more than the next 6 largest spending nations on war combined. So how do we evaluate these facts from our Unitarian Universalist faith? Can our war preparation and participation be morally justified in light of our core faith values? Well, that seems to be an easy one, since we often claim that love is at the center of our faith, and war is, quite frankly, an activity focused on killing people and breaking things, and that certainly seems to be contrary to love. But our values do not have a hierarchy. No one value gets to trump the others, and another deep value that we hold is justice. And most frequently, those who wage and participate in wars claim that their cause is one of justice. They assert that as bad as war is, accepting the injustice of the status quo can be a greater evil than going to war. Think about World War II, which brought death to tens of millions, but many people agree that that war, destructive as it was morally justified in order to bring an end to Hitler's odious Nazi fascist regime. And the people and supporters of Ukraine feel justified in their use of force to defend their nation from Russia's aggression. So how do we reconcile these values? Well, a body of writing known as just war theory has evolved over centuries, with St. Augustine writing in the 4th century, widely seen as the father of this tradition. The standards that we choose to judge wars have evolved and grown over time, but they seek to limit the occasions when war is morally permitted. The criteria to justify war are: 1, it's a last resort. All other alternatives have been tried and failed. 2, there's a just cause, often self-defense or preventing a grave wrong, such as ending a genocide. 3, declared by a legitimate authority, no private wars. 4, victory has to be possible, no feudal wars. 5, war has to be a proportional response to the wrong that it's trying to correct. And 6, only just means can be used in fighting a just war. Now, interestingly, a just war must meet each and every one of these criteria. If even one of these standards is not met, then the war is rendered unjust. But over time, that last criteria, the just means standard, has been also fleshed out into large sets of rules about how to wage war. We might think that's kind of odd, since war itself seems to be the breakdown of rules. But it is, in fact, war is a organized and heavily rule-laden activity. There are hundreds of international treaties and conventions and protocols, collectively known as humanitarian international law, that puts limits on the activities in order to reduce the cruelty of war. These are prohibition of intentionally targeting civilians and the infrastructure that supports civilian life. This often requires the military also to take steps to reduce civilian casualties. Prohibition of targets that aren't necessary to win the war. Requiring capturing and shelter of enemy combatants who have surrendered. Prohibiting the use of torture and ill treatment against prisoners of war. Prohibiting weapons that can't distinguish between civilians and soldiers, like biological and chemical weapons. And most recently, a prohibition against the use of child soldiers. I hope you know that you're sort of getting the Cliff Note version of my 15-week undergraduate seminar on just war theory. So how are we doing? Hopefully, there's no test afterwards, so don't worry. But just to review, just war theory always judges war twice. Is going to war justified, and is how we go to war justified? Now, from our faith perspective, which upholds justice and love, and based on the criteria I've mentioned, most of the recent war activity that we have witnessed recently is not justified. Traditional just war theory condemns taking out a sitting head of state like President Maduro of Venezuela. Traditional just war theory condemns attacking Iran simply because it's enriching uranium. In the Middle East, just war theory condemns the decades-long Israeli control of occupied territories. It condemns the Hamas attacks on October 7th that targeted civilians and captured hostages, and it condemns the excessive use of force against civilians in Gaza. Just war theory condemns the threat of force to take over Greenland. Just war theory condemns the killing of over 200 civilians in the Gulf of Mexico who are allegedly running drugs, because that would be a criminal activity and not an act of war. So even from the perspective of traditional just war theory, and our UU values focused on justice and love, we can see how most of the war activity that we have been witnessing in our present is clearly unjust. And we can go deeper than this. Throughout history, Unitarians and Universalists have consistently engaged in critical appraisal of ourselves and our world, employing reason and logic. And upon further reflection, we can find that the assumptions on which just war theory was historically built are less relevant to why and how we wage war in the 21st century. Just war theory is becoming obsolete. One assumption, for example, is that war is an activity between individuals representing independent countries. The theory further assumes that these countries rightfully control and clear geographical borders, and each country has its own people which have rights. But in today's world, how the borders came to be and exactly where to draw the border is what the fighting is about. This is true in Russia and Ukraine. This is true in Palestine and Israel. This is true in many places in Asia and Africa, such as Sudan. In addition, most wars today are actually civil wars where the groups are fighting to control the government. So this just war theory based on contending nations no longer applies. Another assumption is that war is basically an activity where soldiers threaten other soldiers. Civilians can't be targeted because they do not pose a threat to anyone. Now, when people were using daggers, that rule wasn't hard to figure out and enforce. But modern warfare has created new weapon systems that spare soldiers and threaten civilian lives to a much greater degree. The result is that in today's war, a majority of all casualties, 50 to up to 90%, are civilians. War is no longer an activity where soldiers kill soldiers, it's where soldiers kill civilians. A third assumption is that war is fair among soldiers because they both pose a harm to each other at the same time, as if they were using daggers. In olden days, warriors could only harm each other because they were physically close enough to each other to do so. But this condition also no longer exists in modern warfare, especially when you consider drones. Today, soldiers pilot drones securely from half a world away. The targeted victims have no chance to reach their assailants. Oftentimes, they don't even know they're being targeted. And this fact transforms war from a battle of equals to a cruel slaughter of unsuspecting human beings, something akin to shooting fish in a barrel. And that does not sound like justice or love. Finally, another assumption is that all of the resources and efforts on the part of states to prepare for and engage in war outweigh the good that would result if some of those resources were dedicated to healthcare, housing, education, alleviating poverty. Preparation for war has never been so costly. And yet the appetite for war spending seems to have no limit. The Trump administration is proposing increasing our defense budget by 50% to $1.5 trillion. How many wrongs and injustices could we address with even a fraction of the $3 trillion the world spends on war every year? War is simply not the same thing as it was in the past. War has evolved to be much more costly and much more lethal, especially for innocent civilians. So just war theory is becoming ever less able to provide moral clarity around issues of war and peace. Another way to understand our moral choices related to war is to examine the nature of peace. Some people see peace as simply the opposite of war, that is, the absence of violent conflict. However, the word peace stems from the Latin word pax, meaning pact or agreement. Peace doesn't just happen when the shooting stops. Peace is intentionally created when people agree to prevent and manage their conflicts short of war. Most of all, these agreements must defend and respect human rights of people throughout the world. In other words, the peace must be a just peace. Now, to establish peace, some nations create militaries with soldiers and weapons, which again, according to tradition, is not necessarily unjust. But today we're creating weapon systems that are far more deadly, far more cruel than the daggers of old, and they cannot be justified. I've already mentioned how drones cheapen human life, but nuclear weapons are also a clear case. These weapons can obliterate entire nations. And our nuclear weapons are targeted at population centers where civilians live rather than military installations. And because of their immense destructive capacity, using them in any way violates our values of justice and love. So all these considerations are pointing to the same conclusion: just war is becoming defeated. To uphold the worth and dignity of every human being, to uphold the interconnected web of life, we must end the endless cycle of endless wars. We must abandon just war completely. Now, as someone who has studied just war theory for 3 decades, I'm thrilled to see it go. I believe I should not let just war theory die, however. I think we need to hasten its end. John Lennon urges us in his song Imagine to imagine a different world. And I think we really need to move towards a reality where opting for war will always be the wrong choice. And to do this, I think we can do it. We need to take 2 steps. First, we need a radical reconceptualization of our global relations. Before we are nations, we are a human family. We must discard our view rooted in fear that every country is a potential security threat. Instead, we need to view every country as potential collaborators in a global project of human survival and flourishing. And as Mary Walker bids us, we must begin by planting the seeds down deep in our bodies and in our souls in order to give peace a chance to grow. And second, we must break the terrible long-term habit of turning to our military and opting for war at every turn to achieve our interests. We have to channel our resources away from military spending and improving conditions for life instead of destroying it. Now, this project does not require us to shame our current soldiers or veterans. We can honor with gratitude the service of our fellow citizens in our military, including my own father, and recognize their past sacrifices. But at the same time, we can start a different future where war is not necessary to achieve peace and security. Our 250th birthday as a nation is called the semi-quincentennial because it means we are halfway to the 500th anniversary. That day will come. You and I most likely won't be here, but you and I can have an impact on how our nation will exist then. We can put an end to our violent present so it doesn't become the continuation of our violent past. We can render just war theory completely obsolete. I think our UU values demand nothing less. Turning away from war once and for all, we will free ourselves to spend our wealth and resources on creating a society with equal rights and opportunities and flourishing for all. And in doing so, we will create a just and lasting peace. May we be the ones to make it so. And now Dietrich is going to play his own beautiful arrangement of Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind.
As Unitarian Universalists, there's one ritual that we always do throughout every church across the land, and that is to light and extinguish the chalice. And so we're going to extinguish the chalice flame, and we will be reading together Craig Rowland's Here and Beyond These Walls. The words are in your order of service. As we extinguish this chalice flame, may the warmth of its light remain within us, guiding our steps and our hearts. Let us carry forward the strength of this community, the courage to speak truth, and the hope that transformation is possible. In each breath we take, may we remember that the work of love, justice, and healing is ours to continue, both here and beyond these walls. Go in peace with the light of this gathering to illuminate your way. And now Reverend Ron will lead us in the closing hymn.
So our closing hymn is number 1018 in the teal hymnal. I believe the words are also in your order of service. And this is an easy song to pick up if you don't know it, and it's called a zipper song because you get to zip in a new word for each verse. So rise as you are willing and able, and then also stay standing for the benediction. As we reflect on the ideals of our country and the faith that we hold dear, may we continue to be inspired to plant the seeds of peace deeply into our bodies and our souls. May we continue to imagine a world free of of war, a world that can live as one. Through all of us doing our part today, may we pass on to our future generations that land of freedom and justice, a world where the only arms to be found are those we use to embrace one another in love. Go in peace.
So UUs are a grateful group of people, and so we want to thank everybody for attending this service today and for turning up here to hear Reverend's talk about the absolute necessity of peace. Thank you for coming to experience Diedrich and Vera's beautiful music and for joining in the hymns led by Ron. We are so grateful to have you here. Your presence celebrates the unique journeys of our musicians which came together today to give us such rich and wonderful performances. Thank you, Vera. Thanks also to our peaceful worship associates, Noreen and Bill, and to our production team, Bill, Noreen, Tom, Laurel, and Bruce, for pulling this all together.